anthem. Izwale mithandazo yethu, Nkosi sikelela. Murena buluka sichabasani. Edidipte fanonsye, Eusebet, and the grandse anvorke, and the love to come together, and united we shall stand. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we know the reason why we are here this evening. We have sung the national anthem, and again, I'm going to request those that are outside to come in so that we can go on with the program of the evening. With that said, let me also make you aware where you are seated, there are leaflets, and those should be your programs. With that said, I want to move then now to the second part of this event, that is introduction of the Vice Chancellor and the moderator of the event. But then before I do that, I would like you to allow me to indicate and also appreciate the presence of all of you, the time that you have made to attend, to be part of this important event given issues that are at stake. As we are going to hear, we are going to engage with the issues throughout this particular program. That is the 2024 Town Hall election debate, which is held at the Great Hall of Onkgopotse Tiro at the University of Limpopo. And then with that said, also to emphasize that this is a joint event, that is a collaboration between the University of Limpopo and the Mail and Guardian Media House. Perhaps also to appreciate the effort that was put into this particular event by the Teflop Graduate School of Leadership, because also today we'll be talking issues of leadership, by forging ahead, attracting this particular collaboration for the University of Limpopo. This is our Republic's election year. The 29th of May has been proclaimed as the election day. 30 years into our democracy. And then as we'll be reflecting, hearing about this particular event, we should be asking ourselves, isn't this perhaps going to be one of or the most watershed election of our time? Several issues will be on the table. We have already seen how we are engaging as a people, and as different organizations, political formations, but then also as institutions of learning. And I'm emphasizing institutions of learning because we are here at the University of Limpopo, where we can see a lot of youth in attendance, because that's where education is taking place. Our distinguished panelists will later on be introduced to all of us, but I know they are going to make good of this time and also make it worth our while for having come here. Allow me to introduce, before I go to our Vice-Chancellor, let me first introduce our esteemed moderator, that is Lindeka Tandwa. She brings a wealth of experience in terms of public discourse. As a seasoned journalist, political journalist for that matter, she has been through many of similar events. And then it is my belief that throughout this entire process, as our moderator, he will ensure that the event runs smoothly, brings into it issues of impartiality, civility as we are getting into the discussions, as the panelists are telling us exactly what about this particular town hall election event. And I hope, Lindeka, you are ready for this. Thank you very much. Finally, may I please also, in absentia, appreciate the support of our Vice-Chancellor and Principal, Professor Matlo Mokhalong. Through his support, this event is here. It is a success in terms of what we are going to hear, what is going to come out of this particular event. But of course, because of several engagements, he is going to be represented by Mr. Victor Khomiaswana Bravik, who is the Executive Director of our Marketing and Communication Division. With that said, allow me then to call onto the stage Mr. Khomiaswana to come and do the opening and welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Prof. Sibanda, Premier of the province and a very illustrious alumnus of this institution, Honorable Stanley Chupu Mathabata. I know there might be MECs in here, but my eyes aren't very useful. So if I'm not spotting them that way, I can always refer the media to you. But everybody from the Premier's office in Limpopo, a very important partner of the University of Limpopo. Let me also acknowledge the CEO of the Mail and Guardian Group, Mr. Temi Safagu. There he is. And your entire Mail and Guardian family. By entire Mail and Guardian family, I mean from Innocentia and Mohari, who were there with us from the very beginning, to those who came in last night, to all the virtual calls that we had, the meetings that we had to prepare for this. We acknowledge you and your presence. I also have to acknowledge, of course, Professor Umpumezi Sibanda, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Management and Law, because we are effectively being hosted by his faculty. And I might just single out some members of his team, but specifically Professor Komo, who's going to be on the panel here with us, the Director of the School of Economics and Management. But there are many people from TGSL, the Tafelberg Graduate School of Leadership, that I see seated with us here. There are many people, the entire Faculty of Management and Law, at the University of Limpopo. We acknowledge your contribution, your role in making this happen, and for hosting us here tonight. I also have to acknowledge everybody, members of the executive management of the University of Limpopo who are here, senior management, senior leadership. And let me switch over to the president, because without students, we don't really have a university. Kucho Mamabolo, the president of the SRC at the University of Limpopo. Oh, that's how it goes. You don't applaud anybody else, Poto? Okay, I get it, fighters, I get it. Tsepo Matabata, I am singling you out, but not because of anything other than that the business community of Limpopo is very important. You represent the Limpopo United Business Forum. So if I say Limpopo United, from Polokwane to Capricorn to Vembe to everybody in this province, you are represented. Ladies and gentlemen, we are behind time. So let me, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Limpopo, just open with this quote. One of the most celebrated philosophers, Plato, said something profound. You can say it's profound and you can find it insulting, depending on where you stand on the political scheme of things. He said, those who are too smart to engage in politics, those who are too smart to engage in politics are punished by being governed by those who are dumber than they are. Those who are too smart to get involved in politics serve the punishment of being governed by those less intelligent and less enlightened than they are. I'm using this quote, Premier, because often it is convenient for people to talk about politics as something that we shouldn't be getting involved in. It has been the beginning of time what everybody has said. Don't get involved in politics. People, even in business, Premier, when they fail to manage their dynamics in the office, they'll say, I don't want to get involved in the politics. Well, you want a job, you're getting a salary for that job. You took that job from somebody when you got interviewed and got selected. Somebody preferred you and exercised their influence to make sure you get appointed. Sorry to break the news to you, but you are in politics. The politics of whatever it is you're doing. When your children in your family defy you and they don't listen to you, whether you are the mother or the father, it is the politics of your existence. Everything has its own political dynamics. The word politics should not be dirty. We are still a state where we are governed through elected representatives. And 2024, as the year that many people call the watershed year, where people are coming with all kinds of speculations and projections, all kinds of models about what's going to happen. Some have called it their new 1994. Others have said change is going to come. Some are having this. We have all kinds of interest in 2024 that we have to be interested whether or not we are participating actively, whether or not we are existing in any form of political guise, whether we are involved in student politics, civil politics, we are in the provincial administration and local government, whether we are SANCO, we are civil society organizations. Somehow, what is happening in our country is going to be affected by the outcome of May 29th. And therefore, for an esteemed publication like Mail and Guardian to deem this university the appropriate venue to have this election town hall is something that the University of Limpopo does not take too lightly, and we will forever appreciate it. By the way, Premier, it also happens at the year during the year that we are celebrating our 65th anniversary. So this university is 65 years old. But we are also in a hall. Yeah, you may applaud the University of Limpopo, yeah? Right, us? Okay. But it's also the 50th anniversary, Premier, of the assassination of Nkgopotse Tiro. In 1974, Nkgopotse Tiro, having been expelled from this university, was in Botswana when he received a parcel bomb, and that killed him. So it's 50 years. that we have been without him, and he was taken from us just for standing for his views. And I often hear students at the university saying, I'm standing on this platform where Nkgopotse Tiro made that speech. And I say, no, this hall in 1972 did not exist. It was built because the exclusion that happened at Recreational Hall was such that parents could not fit in. And the university got tired and built a much bigger hall. So it was only from 1976, if I'm not mistaken, that graduations could be held in this. By then, Nkgopotse Tiro was no more. But people who don't get remembered die twice. If you don't remember someone, they die twice. And it's because of that reason that this hall is named after him, so that he doesn't die twice, so that his memory will not just be buried. So as we're celebrating this 65 years of existence, as we commemorate the 50 years of the assassination of the icon that Nkgopotse Tiro was, as we recollect, Premier, the Viva Frelimo rallies that were organized in Durban and at this very university by the current chairman of the board of the Council of the University of Limpopo, among others, Bandelani Nepolowoto, who was one of the student leaders in that time. We are humbled that Mail and Guardian deemed it necessary that we would be holding this election town hall. And those of us who are in this hall, let's find a way of making the most of this. Let's make the engagements as civilized as possible. Let's make them as robust. Let's make sure that we come out of this with a perspective either sharpened, refined, whatever it is that we can. Let this debate not leave you the same person you were when you came into this hall. Thank you very much. I look forward to the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Khumyaswan. What is going to happen now, I'm going to call to the podium Mr. Tembisa Fakude, Chief Executive Officer, Mail and Guardian, who will give us the context and rationale of this particular event. And Lizeka, immediately after that, you take over. I'm going to step off. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think the Director of Marketing and Communication, Victor Khumyaswan, has acknowledged and observed protocol, so I'm going to be very sweet and short, but this has to be done, of course, because we have in our midst a number one citizen of the province who needs to be acknowledged, even if it means 17,000 times. That's Premier Chupu Stan Mathabata, and of course, Master of Ceremonies, Professor Mphimitse Sibanda. So, my name is Tembisa, I'm from the Mail and Guardian, and thanks very much for this wonderful gathering at this very historic university. We used to call it the Teflop University. And this was one of the few universities in the country that actually produced a number of very, very significant and important people in this country, leaders in various faculties of life. When Mahlodi and team came up with this idea, in fact, it was also muted by our immediate past editor, Ron Derby. I was excited that this is one of the things that we are going to be doing. Whilst others are moving and having such the prestigious venues of this country in Cape Town, some of the competition is doing that. We decided that we're going to be coming to where the people are and where history was made. So this is a first stop. The plan is to also move to the Fort Hare University, another historic university where leaders who made great impact in this country were also produced. So it's a great pleasure for us, Premier team and the university executive, to be here because it means a lot. Again, our commitment is that of ensuring that freedom of expression proliferates. Our commitment is to ensure that this democracy that many people fought for continues to be what it is and also proliferates, is to ensure that we encourage discussion however difficult within the South African populace, to ensure that difficult questions are posed to President by commoners like myself. And again, I'm glad that the Premier has made himself available to be, quizzed and tackled by the commoners like myself and Luke. So it's a great privilege for us to be here. And there's no context other than that. The context is about the egalitarianism, encouragement of egalitarianism, democracy, and all the beautiful things that all of us and the people who attended classes at university fought for. So this is why we're here. The Mail and Guardian continues, and of course, we to support, we hope that we will exist for the next decade or century and continue doing what we're doing. In other words, amplification of the stories of the people of the Global South and the amplification of those people who don't have ordinarily a chance to speak at such places. So with those few words, thank you very much for attending, and I'm also looking forward to a vibrant discussion, and I'm glad that the fighters are here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tamisa, for those words. I think everyone is itching and waiting to hear from our panel. My name is Lize Gatandwa. I'm the politics editor at News 24. And I think let's just kickstart it. Let's just get it started. And I want to know, I think this question can be posed to each and every one of these esteemed panelists. These elections, we've been talking about it as the media, we've been looking at the polling around these elections, we've been talking about this change, the sea change that is coming. But I want to know, and perhaps I could start with you, Premier, as the leader of government here in Limpopo, this province. Why are these elections so important? Why should we be looking at these elections and thinking that we need to be participants of this change, if there is one coming?
You know, let me start by greeting the leadership present here, the leadership of the university, the leadership of all political parties present here, and the leadership of the Mail and Guardian. The reason why perhaps people see these elections as more important than any other elections after 1994 is because this is now 30 years after the advent of democracy, or should I say the democratic breakthrough in this country. Now, in these 30 years, people would ordinarily want to know as to where do we come from? What is it that has been done? What is it that has not been done? What were the challenges? And what is our vision? Where do we want to go? To go to? What is our destination, preferred destination? I should think that's why people think these elections should be very, very critical.
Tessa, we've hit a few bumps. There's been a lot of potholes in this road in our democracy. When you're looking at these elections, as someone who's been involved in terms of the democracy of this country, as someone who's been involved in terms of even the constitutionality of these elections, when you're looking at these elections, do you see that there is going to be the sea change? Do you see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel that we're hoping desperately for?
Well, for me, it's not about whether there's going to be, but the necessity for there to be, right? I think this election for me is one of those tipping point moments. It's not going to be the moment. I don't think one election can change a country. I really don't think that that's what happens on the 29th of May. But it does kind of give us a sense on whether or not we shift, from the wrong or the right direction. A survey that we did last year showed that about 74% of South Africans, when asked if they think the country is going in the right direction or the wrong direction, think it's going in the wrong direction. And so that should concern us all, the sense that we have that things are not going in the right direction. For me, where these elections became important, and as I started reflecting, was realizing especially how many young people are tapping out of democracy as a whole. So it's not, in the past we might have said, oh, young people are disillusioned by this political party or that political party. I think when you have a situation like we did in 2021, where there were 40 million people over the age of 18 and were eligible to be able to go and vote, only 26 million registered and only 12 million showed up. That tells you that people are tapping out of the system as a whole, out of the democracy as a whole. The other thing to think about is that if you're 30 years old and you're living in this country right now, the only thing you've known in your life is democracy. But your life is probably not great, right? The majority of people who are 30 in this country are either suffering unemployment, are living in indignity, don't have housing. We have about 6 million people in this country who are living in shack dwellings at the moment. And young people are just suffering under so many different crises, crime, drugs, all sorts of things. And that's what democracy represents for those who have lived it for the last 30 years, if that's all they've known. And so my fear is that if we don't do something that at least shows that you can use democratic instruments to start changing the direction, then I think everybody, we are suffering a democratic crisis, not just a governance crisis.
Should there be a radical shift, Kudzo, in the way that we're thinking, in terms of how we are looking at our future? Because Tessa puts it quite aptly that the youth has become so despondent. They're not really participating in these elections. And quite frankly, there is no significant, clear idea that the youth will be participating in these elections. What are you seeing? What are you hearing from your peers?
Well, absolutely. I think that part of the reason why these elections are going to be very important is because for the first time in over 30 years, the youth will actually have an opportunity of realizing the change that they've long been longing for. The thing is that the young people in the country for many years, since the dawn of democracy, not been interested in politics. Because if you ask a typical young person in the country, in the streets, on why it's important for them to take part in the democracy and vote, they will tell you that they don't see any need to vote, which is where us as young people come in, young leaders come in to say that you now have an opportunity of changing your lives. Because for the first time in a very long time, after so many elections in democracy, the ANC, we can see that is dwindling. Their majority share is now going down. And young people now have an opportunity of coming up with a mechanism that they can use, which is that one man, one vote that our forefathers have fought for. Young people now have an opportunity of saying that let us go to the polls. Let us treat this 2024 elections as our 1994 election so that we can ultimately realize the change that we want to see. Young people in the country are educated. I mean, everything that you can ask from a young person, they've went to school, they have skills, but they are not being able to use those particular skills. So the environment is not conducive for them to use the skills that they've attained for many years. So as young leaders, we want to say to young people in the country that this is the only election that can be pivotal for your future. It's the only election that you can be able to use to deliver that change that you want to see. And let me tell you something. If a regime is so comfortable, they are not going to be able to make changes. But if a regime is threatened by either losing power or anything of that sort, they are going to make the necessary changes. Now, for the first time in a long time, there's a real prospect of going into a coalition government where parties can possibly share power. And that is where we're going to be able to see a new regime that is not comfortable, because at any time you can be removed from power. I think there was a protest today, or a certain mayor was about to be ousted from office because of this coalition dynamic. So if you can have a coalition in the national government level, of course we want to attain ultimate power. But if you can have a coalition at the national level, we're going to now realize a more different approach that government is going to be employing in terms of doing certain things. So we are quite certain that young people are going to turn out and vote. We are quite certain that if we put in the work and make sure that young people realize the importance of voting, they're actually going to turn up into the polls. We've registered so many young people to come and be part of these elections, and we cannot let that hard work go into waste. We're going to make sure that we continue to tell young people that the date is coming where you're going to now realize the change that you've long been longing for.
Sepo, does coalitions bode well for the economy? Does coalitions bode well for business? I mean, this election, you are, I'm sure, looking at it with keen interest in terms of black business as a whole. Any concerns? Where are you looking at? What are you looking at?
Good evening. Thank you, Lizega. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Premier and leaders of business and young people, and of this prestigious institution. I'm proud today to stand on the same stage that former President Nelson Mandela stood on when he was handed over the baton to stand as the chancellor for this university, which was a demonstration of the intention of the new dispensation to transform the country. Transformation has been a very big word and very high on the agenda of this season of democracy, the past 30 years. And as business, we rely on stability to ensure economic growth. So coalitions and the history that we have, very short history at local government level, demonstrates clearly that it sabotages business. It's a suicide mission to try and get into any coalition situation. So as business, in order for us to invest, there's a certain level of security that we need to have in the stability of the running of institutions, of government. So coalition for us is a very discouraging sort of trajectory to try and pursue or encourage. So, yeah.
I want to get to you, Prof. I'm going to park that because I want to come back to it, and I'm sure that the audience will have a number of questions when it comes to coalitions and where the country is going in terms of its stability. But, Prof, the intelligentsia of South Africa, or every country has this intelligentsia, and it's pivotal in shaping policy. It's pivotal in terms of framing the quality of the public discourse of any country. And yet we've seen a retreat in our black intelligentsia, and we've seen somewhat that the cooperation between intelligentsia and government almost non-existent. Is that a true reflection? And how do we change that? Because we need that intelligentsia when we in terms of framing these policies, in terms of taking this country forward. We're in the second innings right now.
Yes, thanks, Lizeka, and also I wish to extend my greetings to my fellow panelists and all the participants that are in attendance. So the reality is that in the last 5 years or so, the situation changed in terms of the intelligentsia, by extension academics, thought leaders getting into the space of shaping public discourse and also ensuring that to a large extent we influence the outcomes of public policies that of course eventually they get adopted by the National Assembly. Because remember, at some point the narrative was that we have these clever blacks who think that they can, well, to a large extent, influence the direction of the country. And that is the reason, those of you who will recall, the individuals who produced the state of capture report were largely academics, drawn from universities. They were the first to tell all of us that the country is headed in a wrong direction. And since the release of that report, by our colleagues attached to various universities, the direction, the discourse changed. And as we know, it's common cause. We had the State Capture Commission that was set up, of course, following the recommendation of the Public Protector. And now we know that our colleagues who are academics, they were correct in their observations and the findings they made at that moment. So subsequent to that, you realize that a large section of academics are now free to express themselves in various fora, not only through media platforms, but also in terms of publishing thoughtful, incisive, quality academic work that seeks to shape the outcomes of public policies, whether in the space of education, health, and also issues around energy, okay? The whole debate around the energy mix. To a large extent, experts, academics are part of that. And those of you who still recall during the days of COVID pandemic, our colleagues who are medical scientists, others are social scientists, they were at the forefront of shaping the discussion, but also working towards producing a long-lasting solution.
I want to speak about Tintswalo and perhaps maybe I want to speak about Tintswalo and perhaps Kuto, I'll frame this question for you and the Premier. The President speaking about Tintswalo, and I would imagine that a Tintswalo is you and I. And Tintswalo is, not you, Tessa.
Too old to be Tintswalo. Way too old to be Tintswalo.
When you are looking at the Limpopo youth, Premier, when you are seeing the unemployment, when you are seeing the destitute, how does one identify with a Tintswalo? How does a Kuto identify with a Tintswalo?
You see, a Tintswalo was used as a metaphor, representing a child of this democratic breakthrough. Remember where we are coming from. I think people should actually be fair with themselves, fair with the ruling party and government itself. You know, we need to understand that before Tintswalo, before the democratic breakthrough in 1994, these young people who today have got skills, thanks to this democratic breakthrough, some of them, yes, like he says, are not able to implement or execute their skills in their particular field. And it's not all, some of them. And that's a scientific statement, you know, because I've got proof to that. But prior to 1994, they could not get those skills. I studied here at the University of Limpopo when it was the University of the North. It was not easy to access, to be admitted here, because I had, firstly, to go through boarding schools, because there were no high schools that time, prior to 1994. There were few high schools. In Sekhukhune, we only had 5 high schools. Today, every village in Sekhukhune has got a high school. So that child, who is a Tintswalo of democracy, was able to move 5 kilometers out of his or her home to a primary school. Before that, an ACD crash. From there, primary school, free of charge, remember. We did not have that opportunity. We were paying school fees. We were paying school, you were not there. We were paying school fees. And if you did not have school fees that time, prior to 1994, you would be expelled from school. You wouldn't enter even a primary school, you know. But thanks to this ANC government, you've got today this child, this Tintswalo, who moves from home 5 kilometers to a primary school, from there a secondary, free of charge. He doesn't pay, he doesn't buy stationery, he doesn't pay a textbook, he doesn't pay.
Sorry, Premier.
I thought
I
we were
must
going
say,
to have-
sorry, Premier. Can I just say that this is a discussion amongst everyone. This is a panel, and I'm sure Kuto will rebut and Kuto will get a chance to respond to the Premier. So if we could just give him a chance to finish his point. Thank you. Yes, Premier.
Yes, this child has got a chance of going through all these processes, irrespective of him coming from a poverty-stricken family, which was not the case prior to 1994. This child have got all possibilities of even going to a tertiary education, because as tertiary education, he has got now NSFAS on campus, NSFAS office on campus, something that we did not have when we came to this campus in Western Cape and wherever in this country, you know. This child at least has got access to these skills, which he did not have. This is the Tintswalo that we are talking about. This child may not get an opportunity now of executing the skills in a particular field, you know, because of the nature of the economy, you know. But The African National Congress government, from the day one, when we came with what we called Ready to Govern in 1992, we made it very clear that we are not going to achieve everything out of parliamentary politics. We made it very clear that as the African National Congress, we are going to enter parliamentary politics with a clear understanding that it is a side of struggle. It is a side of struggle. There are some of the things that we will be able to achieve through parliamentary politics, some will not. Hence, we said we are not going to cease to be a liberation movement, because we understood that some of the things you will be able to achieve them out of political activism, out of the establishment of organs of civil society and organs of people's power on the ground. So, hence, he would say today that at least these people do have skills, the young people. They may not be able to execute them, but some of them, yes, will be able to execute. In fact, most of them will be able to execute them.
Kuzo, do you want to respond to that?
And hence, the case of Tinswalo.
I'm going to come to you, Tessa, because
Unfortunately-
I see your gestures and I see that you have a lot to say about what the Premier has said. But Kuzo, can you respond?
Tinswalo is a child of the elite, if we are being honest. Tinswalo does not represent a normal black child. The Premier can say that the school may be 5 kilometers away, but deliberately not mention that for that child to move from home to the school, they have to walk across a river with no bridge. If you look at people in the Eastern Cape, they are struggling to go to school. Not every school is within 5 kilometers. There are many schools that are far from home, where people have to cross rivers, you get wet before you go to school. On rainy days, there's no scholar transportation to take them to school. Much as we can appreciate the fact that government has managed to fairly have feeding schemes and the likes, we should not be complacent and say that because now you are able to get a textbook for free, which was not the case before 1994, then it means that you are a better person. Apartheid was a system that prioritized whiteness, and we cannot have our own government comparing itself to apartheid. It cannot be right. Now, if you look at what is happening in terms of maybe the education system, that I feel like he put a little bit of emphasis on, the people who complete their matrics and the number of people or students that the higher education sector can be able to absorb is disproportionate. We have over 1 million people who pass matric, but the higher education sector can only take 300,000 or so. What about the 700,000 young people who have matric certificate? Now, you are saying to those people that go and engage yourself in a life of indignity. Go and steal so that you can be able to put bread on the table. Go and do various things that are not supposed to be characterizing young people in the country, so that at least you can be able to make means. That is not what we want. We want an education system that is going to be able to absorb everyone. We want an education system that is not going to prioritize a so-called Tinswalo of the elite. We want jobs in government to be for all. If you listen to what the president of the ANC Youth League said just a few days ago, clear on live television, a clown takes a microphone, says on live television that Panyaza, these jobs of Nasi Span must be given to ANC volunteers. Live television, someone who the young people should be looking up to, say they must be given to the so-called Tinswalos, those ones who are saying that now I'm affiliated to the ANC. We don't want that. We also don't want the situation whereby when the EFF takes government, we'll have jobs going to people who are associated with the EFF. We want jobs to be for all based on merit. That is what we want. That is the situation that we want. Now, as I conclude with my rebuttals to the Tinswalo point, the so-called Tinswalo again does not reflect a young person who's smoking nyaupe and the ANC government is not making a provision for them. Many young people in this country, in primary school, are going to pit toilets. They are subjected to pit toilets. I'll challenge the premier of the province. I saw his entourage as I was going to change my clothes. One car that carries the security of the premier, whose life is not under any form of threat, can build many dignified toilets. Just one car. But the premier whose life is not under any form of threat will not say, I'm going to sell that car and try to fix those pit toilets. We have governments taking money back to National Treasury because they've underspent. They've not managed to spend. Millions of rands, if not billions, have been taken back to Treasury. But we still have pit toilets. Why can't you prioritize the things that matter? We must stop blaming apartheid for how the country was structured. We must say and acknowledge the fact that it's been 30 years of democracy, 30 years of having political power, access to resources. Much as you can say what monopoly capital or whatever, there's nothing more powerful than the state. The state has control, it has money, it has the necessary mechanism to make a change. And the state, as it stands now, is reluctant to make that change. Which is why, as young people, we are saying that this year will be a different year. There's going to be a change in how the system is crafted in South Africa, and we're going to make that change and ensure that the state utilizes its resources effectively.
Tessa, as the Premier was talking, and I asked myself, did we miss the fine print somewhere in the contract with the ANC, with the ANC government in 1994 when it said it could do, but it couldn't do all? Your view on Tinswalo and what the Premier was saying about what the government was capable of doing and what the government could not do.
You know, I'm not one of those people who will say it was better under apartheid. And I reject that view, just because apartheid was a crime.
Yeah.
We can see what's happening in Palestine. We know and we can recognize apartheid. But I always make the comparison. In the Rivonia Circle, we say South Africa is due for an upgrade. And I always make the comparison. 20 years ago, I got my first cell phone. It was an Alcatel. All it could do was make calls, send text messages, play Snake. It was better than the landline. It made my life easier than the landline. But if I was still having that Alcatel today, would you tell me that I'm doing a good thing? You'd laugh at me if I was still holding on to the thing that I got 20 years ago. We are still holding on to the thing we got 30 years ago, as if it was the ultimate. You cannot compare now to that moment in time, in the sense that, yes, apartheid was worse, but we deserve better than what we have now. Absolutely. So if we think about Tinswalo's life, right? And there's two challenges I want to make to where Tinswalo fits into our story. Democracy of elites. That's Tinswalo's feeling. A young man said to me in Umlazi 2 years ago, something that shook me to my core because I realized I was part of those elites he was talking about. When he said, in this country, the reason why young people don't vote is because we get the vote, but they get the democracy. Somebody else gets to live democracy while people are voting and then living with no development. We are giving democracy a very bad name in this country when you have a great constitution, you have elections that work, that are credible, you have the changing hands of government, you have a judiciary that works, but people don't have toilets. You can't tell me that that's the dividend that people are expecting from a democracy. We deserve our democracy to deliver more. Tinswalo at this point, half of Tinswalos don't make it through matric. And I'm not talking about the matric pass rate, by the way. Half of people that start grade 1 don't get to write the matric exam every year. 6% of us have tertiary qualifications in this country. 6% of us. The majority of young people in this country are not able to finish school even if it's free because they don't have food at home. We can't continue to say, the government will tell us, the stats will tell us, 94% of us have access to electricity. We know that's a lie. Because just because you have electrical wires doesn't mean you have electricity. 90% of us have access to taps. Most of those taps are not even in people's houses, they're in yards. And if they're in yards, they don't have water. Let's not pretend by having ticked all of the boxes of doing all of this democratic work that we can overlook when government fails. when we can overlook when our society is failing, when we can overlook an economy that's not working. We cannot continue to look at cosmetic things and call it progress when people's lives are at stake. That's the problem that Transwala is facing today.
I want to come back to you, Premier, but Prof, is it fair to put all the blame at the feet of the government?
Not entirely so, because you remember, yes, you remember we also have the private sector. Okay? You remember we also have the private sector that also is expected to play a role in terms of creating jobs and also in terms of ensuring that there is proper social responsibility, plowing back in terms of the profits that they're making in the different economic sectors that they're operating. Yes, we give a mandate to a government that is expected to fulfill the promises that they made as a result of the manifesto that they sold to the electorate. And of course, it is expected of us as ordinary citizens to continuously hold government accountable for its failings. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying it's an ecosystem. In this ecosystem, there are many role players, including educational institutions, corporate, and other key role players that are expected to play a role in terms of ensuring that there is unity of purpose, but also we have a shared vision and a dream in terms of fulfilling the aspirations, the needs, the interest of ordinary members of the public.
I have to come to you, our table, because Prof talks about the private sector also coming into play in this environment as well. The government has to make that environment conducive for you as the private sector. Has there been an enabling environment for the private sector to flourish?
Lizega, our Tinzwalo is asking why, because of technology. Right now, we have access to information from across the globe. And every person who is aspiring or emerging in business is asking why, because every day they are faced with different sets of challenges. So the first why is, why am I here? And in a province like Limpopo, you look at migration patterns. Everybody left the village. Dintswalo is finding herself in a village today, struggling as a small business operator. So you look at where are the people, where are the customers, where have they gone to? So every small business is asking, where are the markets? There are no people in the village. But as business, we have started investing in the village. The landscape of this province has changed because our businesses are able to grow and we're able to invest in building homes in the village. So Dintswalo's next question is, now that I've built this beautiful home from the little proceeds from my business, what security do I have to access credit? Then we're talking the financial services sector now. There are no products that are suitable for Dintswalo who's in the village so that she's able to access a credit line to ensure that her business has a cash flow. Dintswalo's challenge is when she is working with government, she's not paid on time. And unfortunately, she goes to court, she wins the case, she has a court order, comes back, and there are no consequences for the person who has delayed her payment. Dintswalo comes to a setting like this. She establishes that she doesn't have a driver's license. She discovers from one of the speakers from a TITA that no, there's a program of government that ensures that she gets a driver's license for free. But she's never heard of this program. So government is communicating, the communication arm of government is broken because these programs, these incentive schemes, these solutions to Dintswalo's problem are there, but she's not getting them. So there's a problem in terms of how information flows and how it's disseminated. Every single public participation I've ever attended, we fill in an attendance register with my updated number, my updated email. But I don't hear from, but Dintswalo does not hear from the people that invited her to that session ever again. Dintswalo's problem is then what? What can she do to improve her situation? Dintswalo is running a spaza where she opens up and locks up and sells the whole day on her feet. And then she gets the local government arm of the local economic development saying, come and participate in the forum. Dintswalo can't leave her shop. The only way she gets to hear of opportunities are on radio and on a newspaper. Yet every morning she wakes up with a handheld device where technology can be used to communicate to her. So again, what can she do? And these are the questions that Tintswalo is asking herself. Who? Who does she talk to? Government says we have Tutuzela centers, we have the other name, Premier, I think you'll assist me in your response. We have a one-stop shop where Tintswalo can go and ask any question around interventions of government for her. When she goes there, it's load shedding. The computers are not working and she can't get any assistance. So Tintswalo's challenges are quite a few, but there are interventions there that can help her resolve, but the information does not reach her in time, which is ludicrous because we have in our palms of our hands, in every young person here, with every 5 seconds, they're checking their handheld device. I don't know why we are underutilizing some of the resources that are there for us to communicate. Because I've realized in the little experience that I've had is that our problem is communication. There is a total breakdown in terms of how we're communicating among each other. Some of us are seeing each other for the first time today and probably the last. What conversations are we having to ensure that we're able to unlock for each other in our respective areas of influence?
Premier, perhaps you could respond to all the panelists. Prof talks of the private sector coming in at play as well, coming into the field and working with you. Kutso talks about the consequence management, and I think our Sepo as well talks to that, the consequences. Kutso talks about returned money from Treasury and nothing has been done. Tessa speaks to a Tintswalo who is an elite, and Tintswalo who no one can identify with. Perhaps you could respond to the panelists before we take some questions from the floor.
I think I would totally agree with the prof that all of us had a role to play in this democracy. Hence, President Mandela, in his preface of the Reconstruction and Development Program, he says this program shall be a people-driven program. He never said it will be an ANC-driven program. He said it will be a people's-driven program. Again, the African National Congress was very clear when it comes to socio-economic development in this country. It said ours shall be a mixed economy. It said ours shall be a mixed economy. And the degree, content, and the extent of mixture of this economy shall be determined by what we called the balance of evidence on the ground. The objective material conditions holding on the ground. That shall be the determining factor of this balance, which therefore says if another wing is like, when you pedal a bicycle, if one side of your pedal is not working properly, it will affect the other side also. And we have never been under the illusion, as the African National Congress, that everything that we intended to do is going to fall just as if you are resolving a mathematical program, balancing the equation. No, we have never said that. We said this is a social problem, it's social development, it's a social problem. We will definitely have unexpected or sometimes even unintended consequences. Whilst we traverse this journey of social development. That is what the African National Congress said. But now, this myth about a Tintswalo who's an elite which is actually unfortunately said by the elites, the two elites on my far left and my far right.
Yes.
You know, they are actually the ones today who have got the guts of saying some are elite. Look at him and tell me who is elite between him and the Tinswalo that we are talking about. The Tinswalo that we are talking about is from a village. Is from a rural village who initially could not even afford the kind of shoe that he's affording. And today he has got the guts of saying that somebody else is more of an elite than him. Let me dispel the myth within what he's saying. And I'll give you facts. You can go and check them. Facts. Not. Yes, facts. This 2022-2023 in this province, Limpopo, the provincial government of Limpopo spent more than 98% of its budget. And the norm, the international, not only the national norm, the international norm, and I think I am speaking to people who are at tertiary institutions here, who should be understanding at least some of these basics and common sense, which doesn't seem to be very common from this side. This common sense, which does not seem to be very common in the other side. As a result,
Please, can we just?
As a result, we, in terms of international norms, we spend accordingly as a province. And no billions were returned anyway. The million, about 200 or so out of 70 billion rands, that was not spent, is still in the fiscus, is still spent by the provincial government of Limpopo. I don't know where you get your facts, if they are facts. So, the pit toilets, in this province, we had about 500 to 600 pit toilets in our schools. We have eliminated almost all of them, except only 80, my sister. We are left with just 8. You can go and check the evidence that I'm talking about. I'm not talking building up stories here. I'm telling you facts. Cut and dried. You can go and decorate what you call lies. You can go and decorate it better. But really, what I'm trying to say to you is that at the end of the day, you can't hide the truth from the people.
With that being said, I will ask the floor if they have any questions, any statements. I think I will take 5 hands. Is there a roving mic? I have a feeling they are prepared to speak to their premier. The premier is accountable to the people of Limpopo, and I'm sure he will be willing and able to respond to your questions. Is there a roving mic?
There's the
Okay. The gentleman to the second row,
Mr. Maro, let me see the problem.
can he start?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, thanks very much. My questions are directed.
Sorry, sir, can you just give me your name?
Okay, my name is Donovan Seloletswalo.
Yes, Don.
Yes, my questions are directed to the outgoing premier. Well, let me start by saying this, Premier, I'm extremely disappointed in you that as a former leader of the UDF and MK veteran, you are saying such things which you are saying about apartheid, comparing democracy with apartheid. It's extremely disappointment. Let me start. In 2022, when you did your ritual of giving sopa every year, you said that you are promising 48,000 jobs to be precise. And then after that speech which you gave in the province, unemployment increased by 7% from 42%. It's facts, scientifically proven. The second one which I want to bring is that there is an issue, Premier, that there was a project which you went to open in Talani Hostel in Tzaneen. You know very well of 15.3 million. I think it even extended to Begasford. There was a project which was supposed to build 196 temporary structures for the people of Talani Hostel in Tzaneen. And you, Premier, with facts, you went there and unveiled 40 shacks. Out of the 196 shacks which were supposed to be unveiled, equally, one shack, by the way, it's fact, you can go and read the SIU report. The SIU report clearly indicates that each check was costing 62,000 rand. Even in Santen, there is no check that costs 62,000 Premier. Till to date, you have not done anything about that Premier. Equally, let me go to the other one. In 2022 December, to be precise, you and the president of this country, Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, you went to the people of Giyani. Order.
Can we please have order? Can we please have order, please?
You went to the people of Giyani with Minister Senzo Mkunu, to be precise. You promised the people of Giyani water. Till to date, as we speak, the 55 villages of Giyani, to be precise, they do not have water. And you have been Premier for 2 terms. 2 terms. You can't say that, no, I only served 1 term. 2 terms. Premier, I wish you should have remained in Europe. You are not doing anything in this province. Let me continue.
Thank you, Donovan. I'll move to the gentleman in the 3rd row. Yes, you. The gentleman in the 3rd row in the middle.
Thanks very much for the opportunity. My name is Morores Kukuna. I'm the chairperson of the Azanian Philosophical Society. My questions would be focused entirely on the upcoming elections, not on the politics really of pragmatical politics of our country. These elections are making me the most scared person in the world. Why? Because with understanding of interventions of the family like the Rothschild family, in the proceedings of government, my question becomes then, with regarding the socio-political and socio-economic status of our country, to what extent will these elections reflect the will of the people? Number one, considering the lack of education, political education, and their participation in election. Number two, the motive drive that influence our people in participating in elections. What would be, to what extent would it reflect their will? Secondly, my question is again, I'm finding a way to phrase this question to not sound somehow. But then my question becomes then,
It's okay, Muraro. Continue.
so the legitimacy of the outcomes of these elections, won't they somehow influence a social unrest or civil war that might lead to a global war? I'm saying that the next coming 10 months, we might find ourselves in this room having AK-47s to fight. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman in front with the EFF t-shirt.
No, thank you very much, Lizeka. You started, and let me acknowledge everyone, especially our president of the Economic Student Command. And sorry, Premier, he won't come here as a stone-aged man. He must be clean. He must look more than clean than yourself, because he's still here. Right. You see, Lizeka, you started this show very well with your question. Unfortunately, it was not responded to. You see, the most important thing, looking ahead of 2024, is to remove these liars of the ANC. Nothing else. Because why we have to remove them completely and receive zero is because they speak of Tintswalo of Yorkshire or Frankfurt in Europe. The Tintswalo that we know, they spoke about Tintswalo of Guyana. They are about terms, Premier. Me and you, we know all those terms. Glen Alpine, De Hoop, and many. The only thing is our streams are no longer flowing. Our rivers are no longer flowing. And you know within your heart and your friends that you allowed the agrarian farmers to build illegal catchments and dams. And you are failing to take them head on because you are having shares, if I suspect, around that. Why can't you allow your people to go and demolish those catchments and illegal dams? You know the date of the case, you know the case number. Don't lie and say you don't know about it. My position is very clear that if you need to be realistic in your government, you are no longer relevant in any way because you are left. And I think in terms of the creation of jobs, the government can produce more. If the EFF would take over at 12 o'clock, 12:05, every skilled person will be employed in South Africa. Because yourself, you are in cahoots. The reason is that, Lizek, the reason is that, you see, the foundation of the ANC negotiations started with the business people. The reason why they're driven by profit. The lady there, she doesn't worry about the people. She's worried about the profit because they're in cahoots with the ANC. Now we're not going to believe any capitalist ideas to come and influence the direction of our people. Now,
I'm going to ask you to keep it a little bit short, Baba.
no, I'm going to the last one now.
Thank you.
The last one. You know, I'm asking the Premier the 25%. Our children don't get NSFAS or whatever there. There's a lot of money that the Premier is having, the 25% of social responsibility. What did we do with that money? Meanwhile, a lot of Tintswalos are not even placed at the early childhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. One more question. The lady. I am looking for a lady. The lady over there with the white duke.
Evening to everyone present here. It is not really a question that I have, but a point to raise to the Premier. Mr. Premier, you compared the Tintwalo to President Mamabolo. But then, what I want to say here is that the President here being in the institution might have been lucky to be here compared to the Tintwalo in the village. Ms. Dooms here mentioned that there are a lot of matric graduates, to say that. But not everyone who has a matric certificate was privileged to enter into an institution, a higher institution. What is the government doing with that? You are raising points about Tintwalos, identifying Tintwalos in villages, but what is the acting government doing to actually improve the lives of those Tintwalos in the villages? For instance, there are programs such as the EPWP. Those programs may only be for like 12 months. And then after that, new candidates are recruited, and those Tintwalos who were recruited back then are back to square one. Relying on the spaza shops, Ms. Matabata made an example about that. I think they are going back to square one, relying on the spaza shops that they rely on for survival. So, Mr. Premier, to actually be short, before raising such a point, please consider what the acting government is actually doing to perform their obliged duties. Thank you.
Okay, just one last question at the back. Can I can't see them properly. Can I have the gentleman with a cap?
First of all, I would love to pass my open-heartedly.
Can I get your
greetings
name, please, sir?
My name is Prince Mudiga. Okay, I will start with the statement of which will lead to my question. So, my statement, ladies and gentlemen, is that in terms of fighting for democracy and freedom, we actually fought together. It was not the ANC that fought for democracy and freedom. Unity brought us together. That is why we are here today. And another thing, ladies and gentlemen, that I want to raise is the fact that our democracy promotes inclusive society, of which I don't see where they are including actually including people, because we are told about inclusivity each and every time when we are going out, but I've never seen any disabled person ascending the presidency position. And another thing, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to ask the Premier if whether it is, let me just say, in most cases, good leaders are just given example of in most cases. So a lot of people give examples with good leaders. So why is it that each and every time the ANC give example with Nelson Mandela, is it that the other leaders that came after Nelson Mandela were not good? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the audience. Premier, a number of questions directed at you. As well, it was expected. You are the leader of government. I want to start with Donovan. Donovan makes very important points. Giyani Water Project. He talks about the unemployment of the huge unemployment challenge that you have. You are, I think, the third province in terms of our unemployment stats. He talks about 48,000 job promises that you made. He talks about 15.3 million used, and I know that story very well. The temporal structures which you were photographed and which were actually shacks. Speak to that, if you could just respond to Donovan, Premier.
Donovan says we should not compare this democratic breakthrough with apartheid. Fairly so. Nobody did compare that. What we said, though we don't want to compare the two, but we must understand where we're coming from. That's what I was simply saying. You can't just wish it away. It is our history. It has been there. And it created the kind of problems that we are trying to resolve, even today. So there's no ways in which we cannot always refer to it. Unemployment, if he could care to remember where do we come from with this unemployment rate. And we have always said, unfortunately, people just look at today and they forget about yesterday. We have always said we are going to deal with this unemployment, and we knew that it was not going to be an overnight thing. Unemployment is increasing, but increasing at a decreasing rate. You want those? Those.
Sorry. Can we please have some civility, please?
Tessa.
Can we please have some order? Can we please have some order?
If you don't understand what I'm saying, and unfortunately, Tessa, I know that I was a mathematics teacher, but this is not a class of mathematics. I can't be held responsible for the ignorance. I can't be held responsible for your ignorance. I am saying unemployment rate is increasing. Unemployment rate is increasing in a decreasing rate. And that is fact. That is fact. He says another lie that I must dispel. Another lie that I must dispel, which is because it is not true, definitely not true. He says to us, we did not do anything about the saga of Talan. And as I'm talking today, people are going through a court processes. We have identified those who committed those wrong and bad things. Those corrupt officials, they are no longer in the employ. They are no longer in the employ of government because of this corruption that happened under their nose. They are now going through court processes. So it can be correct to say that nothing was done. You must go and get your facts right. That is Donovan for you. But I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that he is representing a political party that is represented by this mayor who failed for 2 terms until we dismissed him. We had to dismiss him because he failed. So I'm not surprised that those below him are thinking like he does.
Premier, I will, please, can we allow, I will allow you to respond. I will allow you definitely to respond. Can we have some level of order? Can we have order, please? Tessa, understandably, an issue of unemployment. The issue of unemployment is something that is an emotive topic. He was not done.
But
It's not done.
But I'm still.
Continue.
We are not going to be intimidated by this.
Can we please have some order?
We'll proceed.
Can we please have some order?
So, okay, thank you.
You will respond, sir.
Thank you for understanding that there must be order. There must be order, yes. Let me also respond to this question
Okay, just
that was raised.
Premier, can you please hold on? The Prof would like to speak.
I think, thank you, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think in order for us to reflect the principles of being in an academic setup, we need to engage, interact, and give each other an opportunity. I do not think the university executives would have created this kind of a platform together with Mail and Guardian to disrupt the sole purpose of affirming each other and getting motivated so that we could actually approach the future with certain understandings. Universities are meant to differ in principles and also create and develop frameworks for the benefits of dealing with the social ills that we are confronted. It is my appeal, dearest students, on behalf of the university, that we cooperate, and exactly what we are doing is what I'm trying to call into order. Can we just actually behave and allow each other an opportunity? I'm not going to engage. Just to allow each other an opportunity to finish. The moderator is doing quite very well to give each person an opportunity to engage. May we just actually cooperate and finish this particular sitting. Thank you.
Yes. My mic, yeah. To what extent will these elections influence the motive forces? I think he wanted to infer that these are the motive forces of our revolution. Yes, indeed, you are very correct. These elections by their own nature, brings into the picture or into the democracy a new mandate. It brings into the democracy new forces which are supposed to propel that mandate. At the end of the day, the mandate should be the people first and individuals later. The people first. You see, the African National Congress has got a policy that they call the three-circle principle. That says it's the people, the organization, and the individual later. So these elections definitely, if you elect a progressive government, progressive party like the African National Congress, it will change. It will change the conditions of the motive forces. Why? Because it has that experience. The ANC has been in government for 30 years. We have seen the best, we have seen, and we have seen the worst. And under this ANC government, we have been able to produce the kind of environment that you see. If you traverse in Limpopo today, you hardly see a mud house, which was a common feature prior to the past 30 years. This ANC government has been able to untap and open up economic opportunities in mining, in tourism, and in agriculture. Anybody can exclaim, yeah, or whatever. But prior to 1994, when the African National Congress took over, you had less than 10 mines in Sekhukhune at least. Today you've got more than 45 mines there, courtesy of this ANC government.
Premier, Sorry, Premier, with all due respect.
Unfortunately, most of the questions were directed
Well,
to me,
there are
so
some
I've got
questions
to
which-
respond to them.
There are some questions that I would like, for
and
instance, Murano's
let-
questions, I think.
Okay, let me just finish those that I wanted to
If you could
to
kindly,
respond to.
yes,
I'll
yes,
come
Premier.
back to yours.
I want to start with the first question, Donovan's question around, for instance, the temporal structures. You didn't really quite get into that.
I did answer that.
Oh, you did?
I did respond to that, Tessa. That's when I was talking about the Talan issue. And Donovan was saying we did nothing about it. And I said, no, that is not true. People have been arrested because of this ANC government.
Okay.
We made them to be arrested. And today they are going through court processes, legal process. We did respond to that question. But now, let me come to my former comrade, Mapolo. You know, my former comrade was talking here, and as and when he was talking, Tessa, I felt very vindicated that I had to recall him as a mayor because he was a failure. He says he and me knows very well that there are dams in this country, in this province, for example. He forget to tell this population here, this audience here, that these dams that he's talking about were built by the ANC government. Yes, Nandoni was built by the ANC government. Flag Michelo Dam, the level was raised by this ANC government. The Hoop Dam was built by this ANC government. So he cannot come here and behave as if these dams came like manna from heaven and nobody had a hand in building this dam. Our own government had a hand in building this government. The issue of corruption. The issue of corruption, Tessa, whenever people talk about this issue of corruption, they forget to tell people. They forget to tell people that the reason why apartheid is exposed today and not concealed as it was under apartheid is because this ANC government established...
Can we please have some order? Can we please have some order?
Okay, Tessa, I think we should continue as if they are not there.
Yes, sure.
Let's just ignore their existence and their presence. They forget to tell people that the reason why this corruption is exposed is because this ANC government established and put in place instruments to expose this corruption. And it did not end there. It continued to come up with other instruments to ensure that there are consequences for those who are caught with their hands in the cookie jar. And if we are very fair to this ANC government, it was not only ordinary people or people in the private sector or public servants who were found wanting, who were caught with their hands in the cookie jar. When we said we are going to expose corruption, we said we are going to expose corruption out there, including corruption in the ANC itself. Hence, you've got very many senior comrades of the African National Congress being taken through court processes. Hence, you had to get and establish
The Zondo Commission, established by our own president, President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa. And today, we are dealing with the recommendations of the Zondo Commission. Because we established that commission ourselves. I think I just did not get the name properly at the back. I think he will understand
Prince.
that it is not correct that we always refer to Mandela, quote Mandela. We always quote Thabo Mbeki. We always quote Matamela Ramaphosa. Hence, we always do that. We are talking about Tintswalo today because we're quoting Matamela Ramaphosa. So it can be correct that we are not running short of leaders in the African National Congress. We have got an abundance of leadership. We have got depth in the African National Congress. Hence, we've got so many of them. Yes, I agree with you. The ANC is not, and we have never claimed to be, is not the only organization that fought for this liberation. Firstly, the people of South Africa themselves fought for this liberation. The ANC simply organized the people of South Africa under the banner of the African National Congress. But you can't write off the fact that the African National Congress is the longest existing liberation movement in this country. The African National Congress was the main target of the apartheid regime. Why was that the reason? It was because the African National Congress was a force that turned around the situation. But we accept that we're not the only ones.
Okay. Tessa.
Yeah.
That's a mouthful from the Premier. He says that the ANC exemplifies a commitment to deal with corruption. He makes examples of the Zondo Commission, which was a commission that was started by the ANC. But has the ANC government, to your reflection, have we seen enough in terms of dealing with corruption internally in the ANC, as the Premier alludes to or says, and even outside of the ANC in terms of government itself, consequence management, which we have been talking about for most of the night? What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think that we can only talk about dealing with corruption once we move from corruption being blamed and solely dealt with at the level of officials, and we start to actually deal with it at the level of the political principles. We have not seen political principles being held accountable in the same way that we see officials.
Jacob
So
Zuma
officials,
is going through court processes.
for the last 20 years, for the last 20 years, that is a fact.
Jacob Silebe was convicted.
But I sat here quietly as you spoke, Premier. Allow me.
I mean, you must.
But I sat here quietly as you spoke. Allow me.
But you must be factual. You must not just say things that are not there.
I will get to facts in a moment,
respond to
Premier.
Tessa. Let's allow her to finish.
I will get to facts in a moment, Premier. The fact that the ANC can name on one hand the number of its politicians that have been held accountable legally for corruption is exactly why that's the problem. The problem is that we are not seeing political principles being held accountable. And our politicians in this country run roughshod without accountability because the power lies with the party. The party does not see itself, and not just the ANC. Political parties in this country in general see themselves as only accountable to themselves. And we can talk about the ways in which that's a product of many things, including the electoral system. But we are not getting a voice as citizens to hold the politicians accountable while they very easily will say it was the official, and we're dealing with the officials. Those officials are taking instruction from political principles. That's what the Zondo Commission taught me. That when you look at that, the political principles have oversight that they do not do, and then blame it on the officials. If we don't deal with depoliticizing the state and ensuring that there's accountability with the political principles, you can't deal with corruption. But I just want to go back to the Premier's point about facts, because I think the Premier didn't hear the fact that I told him many facts. I told him about the fact that it's a fact. I spoke to the Statistician General last week because I'm elite. I can get access to a Statistician General that told me that only 6% of us have a tertiary qualification. That told me that only 5 out of 10, every grade 1, ends up in matric. That's the reason why our unemployment rate, the official unemployment rate, is 32%. The Statistician General last week pointed out that the unofficial rate, that includes over 1 million young people who are discouraged work seekers because they don't have matric, is actually at 42%. 42%. Those are the facts. And so we can dance around. And this province contributed to that, by the way. In this round of matriculants, you had 40% of this matric class that was together with them in grade 10 did not get to write that matric exam. So we must understand that facts have stories behind them. Facts have people behind them. And so if you're spending as a government should, Premier, you should be spending that 98%. But if the young people who are in those villages, those young Swallows, are not feeling the effect of that spend, then what is the point? We can talk about it all day long, but we are having unemployment crisis in this country because we are not taking our young people through a full journey of education. We're not getting them into employment. We're not ensuring that there's an economy that is functioning that can absorb them in. And we're creating job opportunities for the last 10 years. Jacob Zuma introduced the term job opportunities. Cyril Ramaphosa is still talking about job opportunities today. We know that what a job opportunity means. It means EPWP programs where people are in a loop on an EPWP program for years. For years, for up to 15 years. I've met EPWP people who will tell you for 15 years, and I was in this province when a group of EPWP people came to a workshop I was hosting, and they said, well, we can be here today because we actually are not working because we haven't been paid in 3 months. That's what a job opportunity can look like, and those are also facts. But we cannot continue just to tick boxes in this country, and I will say it again. We will tick boxes till the cows come home, but the true experiences that people are having are telling us something different. They're telling us something different. The statistics can tell us that 94% of us have access to water, but we know that those taps are dry. We cannot continue on like this. And part of the reason why I mention this in relation to the question of corruption is that corruption steals from people. It steals from our ability to deliver. It steals, we shouldn't have to get to the point where we're arresting people for shacks. Why were the shacks built? There's no political accountability in the country. And I want to just address the question about elections,
Yes.
if you may.
Yes,
I don't know if
please.
you're going to get back to it
Yes,
later.
the legitimacy of the outcome of the elections.
The legitimacy of the outcomes of elections is a really, really important thing in this election, right? Because what's happened is there's a lack of trust in politics. People in this country don't trust politicians. We don't trust the political system. People are staying away from elections because we are now starting to not trust the IEC. That is a major democratic problem. I said it earlier, the failure to deliver on development is giving democracy a bad name. And so when a young person says to me, I'm not sure the IEC can deliver on a credible election, even though we've had 6 credible elections, that is a problem. But I do want to say to people a few things about the elections. One is that the IEC has had a track record on delivering on elections in a way that we have not had to question. Wherever there have been incidences in the past, we've had electoral courts that have been able to deal with them. Political parties are able to observe elections end to end. So you have party representatives that can be across the entire full chain of the elections. The process has not been made digital exactly because if it's a manual process, it's harder to manipulate a manual process than a digital process. So the IEC has done as much as it can to protect the sanctity of the election. What needs to happen in this election, though, is we do need more voter education because the electoral system is changing. And we can talk about the ways in which it's changing. So we need voter education so people understand those changes and don't feel like those changes are somehow manipulating the system. We also need to know that political parties must have evidence if they're going to make claims that something has gone wrong in the electoral system. So if a political party or a politician says, I don't trust the IEC, I think it's going to be rigged, they must present evidence that can be tested. I think that we mustn't get into a point where our trust in the system erodes so much that we take it away from facts and evidence, especially when it comes to this election. Our elections are sacrosanct. We must protect the integrity of those elections. And this week alone, the IEC had the issue about the lists being leaked. Today, the IEC addressed the fact that they had found the workstation, they had found the people who had leaked it, and those people are today fired. So I do think we must protect the integrity of this election and ask people, and people must raise issues. If issues come about and people feel like there's some form of tampering, it must be raised. But we absolutely must come with evidence that can be tested because our sanctity of our elections is absolutely, absolutely key.
Thank you so much, Tessa. Prof, I want to come to you and perhaps get your response to the Premier saying that unemployment is increasing at a decreasing rate. Surely it's an emotive topic, and understandably, the students are emotional about this topic. It affects them directly. Can we allow, at this point, politicians in such high-profile positions and authoritative positions, such as the Premier, to speak to us about unemployments that are increasing at a decreasing rate, seemingly not having a clear plan of where we're going with this challenge?
Yes, Lizeka, thanks for that. So we know the facts. The facts are telling us that South Africa, we are among the countries with the highest level of unemployment. So it's a fact that is unassailable. You can't counter the fact, okay? And I think also the government under the ANC rule, of course, they speak about their election messaging, which is around the 30 years of South Africa's democratic order. They do acknowledge that there have been setbacks, challenges, and also successes. And they also have to acknowledge and admit that the GEAR policy, which was introduced in 1996, which created a jobless growth. So the economy was growing at acceptable levels, but also people in different economic sectors lost jobs, okay? A massive number, due in part to privatization of state-owned enterprises. So as we reflect on this journey, 1994 to date, and I appreciate the robustness that is coming from the audience. And this is what we have been calling for, to say it is important for political parties to counter the narrative of the 30 years of South Africa's democratic order with facts. Because this is their election messaging. They are selling this to the electorate. It's up to the other political parties to counter that narrative. So it's appreciated that the audience, they can engage at that intellectual level in terms of countering this election messaging of the ANC that they're selling to the electorate. So I wanted to appreciate that part. I wanted to also chip on the issue of corruption. So we know that the Corruption Perceptions Index says to us that South Africa is a country perceived as highly corrupt. Okay? The evidence is there. And the other point that we normally express as academics in the context of Africa is that the day corruption will end is when we see politicians being charged, being prosecuted, and jailed. That will be the day corruption in Africa, the levels will be going down, because the message will be very clear that it's not only the ordinary guy in the lower rank of the public service or the civil service, but also politicians can be held accountable in terms of prosecution. But also equally, one has to acknowledge that there has been some movement in fights around dealing with corruption. If you look at the work of the Special Tribunal, to date, the Special Tribunal has been able to recover about 8 billion rands of stolen funds through, in part, the work of the SIU. So that also has to be acknowledged, to say, yes, corruption, the levels are high, but the criminal justice institutions are also hard at work, despite the challenges they are faced with in terms of prosecution capacity. If you take the Steinhoff case, NPA does admit to say internally we don't have this capacity to some of these white-collar crimes. Thanks.
Sisitepo, is that enough to comfort the investor? Those facts that have been delivered by the professor?
To a degree. And I'm saying this because you would know that small businesses are the building blocks of any thriving economy. Now, how do we ensure that they are nurtured, they grow, and they create jobs? Jobs come from small business. And a big hindrance in the process of building a business is corruption. And we have a challenge in our daily interactions as to how we characterize corruption. And I think that's the first challenge we need to overcome or resolve. Some of the students are here. In 2-3 years' time, they're going to graduate, and they're going to have certain conversations with people of influence in different spaces. Now, advocating for your own employment through favors is the first step of the problem. Yet, when corruption is spoken of, you scream the loudest, whereas you're a beneficiary of that corruption. So we have a challenge of a public service with a very low morale, with very limited skills, sometimes skills that are not aligned to their function. What is the root cause of this? And it's this example that I've just given, where somebody was given a job that they did not deserve. Secondly, what enables businesses to thrive? Spatial planning. In this province, we have a very, very big problem where spatial planning is not coordinated from a central point. Case in point, Polokwane. Right now, you can't determine where the city starts or ends. And that comes with certain limitations on an economic development, from an economic development space. We want to build industries. And if you need to put up a 30 square meter bonded warehouse in the city of Polokwane, you cannot. There isn't enough space. And what is cited are historical decisions that are affecting how the town is growing or not growing. The history of Polokwane is that the ANC government merged 3 former homelands. And all the public servants from these homelands had to be accommodated in this new government. And that led to the influx of people to work in the city. You would know we're the capital city and we're housing all the departments. Now, when you look at Polokwane, there are only 2, 3, 4, at most 5 industries. In the soft drinks, the alcohol, and a few others, where they're employing more people than government. Now, we need to ensure that we are beneficiating some of the minerals. We are agro-processing some of the fresh produce, the meat products from this province. None of it is happening in the capital city. And even if you are to look around other areas, it's not happening there. How do we overcome that? Spatial planning. I've built a 2 million rand house on a piece of land that does not have a title deed. What can we do about that so that I can get security to access credit to ensure that I'm able to enhance my business? Even with commercial buildings, we have invested. Some of us are in the retail space. You have put up a bottle store, a butcher, a hardware on tribal land. What value does it really have when you're engaging with the IDC for funding? None whatsoever. You don't have a leg to stand on. So we really need to talk to the issue of land tenure to ensure that businesses, particularly in a rural area, are able to create the necessary jobs. We need to protect local industries. There are inconsistencies in how budgets are allocated to incorporate local residents when a project comes through. And that's what causes a lot of the work to be delayed when government is rolling out projects. And that is the understanding of how are local industries protected here? How does somebody from another province come and build a road in my neighborhood? And I don't have a say, I'm not involved, and here I've invested. So there needs to be a protection of local industries. In the retail space, there are low entry businesses like spazas, where anybody can come and play. Can we protect that space and ensure that we reserve it for local people so that it inspires us to continue to create jobs?
Premier, is there cooperation between the private sector and government in terms of what our Tsepo is talking about? Because you do have the agri-economy, which you could be capitalizing in. She speaks of the IDC and the inconsistencies within the IDC. And, you know, for someone like me, driving to Limpopo, there's one thing that I noticed, which is striking to me, is that people of Limpopo have ties to the province, more than any other province. In fact, in Gauteng, you'll see that in June, in December, people are driving in the N3, and yet there's only one route. I believe it's the N3 and the R101. The N3 and the R101. Why hasn't there been development in that space? Where is the cooperation between business and government to develop this province in a way that is beneficial for both business and government as well as the youth?
Yes, definitely there is a lot of cooperation between the private sector, being business and government. For instance, Limpopo, it's a mining province. And as a result, we've got a committee that involves government and the mining sector, which up till thus far has had a lot of spin-offs in terms of economic development. In terms of building roads, we have built roads. We are building the biggest bridge in Sekhukhune. We have done a number of social development projects together as government and the private sector, from the mining sector, including the agricultural sector. The commercial farmers, we are now merging them with local farmers from the side of government so that we can produce. And you'll remember that we had investment conferences, and we can see to date that those investments are now rolling in, and we've got tangible. For example, this also talks to the earlier point that we raised on unemployment. It's not like we are saying we are happy with the unemployment rate. It's a problem for us also. But to give you an example, talking a very layman's language. To give you an example, in 2023, for example, we lost 40,000 jobs in terms of Stats SA. But in the same year, we created 182,000 jobs in terms of Stats SA. So you can't tell me about 48,000 jobs. I'm talking about 182,000 jobs that has been created in the same year, whilst we lost 40,000 jobs. And the fact that we lost jobs, then unemployment will increase, irrespective of what you are creating, because it depends on the pool. What is your target? How many jobs do you have to create? Remember, unemployment in this country started effectively in 1983, when what is normally referred to as Fordism, in economic terms, started in this country, for example. So it can't be that unemployment is starting today because there is an ANC government. No, the ANC government is coming up with mechanisms, and we did come with mechanisms to reduce unemployment. Unfortunately, there are so many other factors at play. For example, you have 4IR. In effect, and it's not only in South Africa, it's not only in Limpopo, all over. I was in China at some stage. I was in a factory that used to appoint about 5,000 people. And that guy was saying to me, we are now only employing 50 people in this factory. Why? And they could show me. They had robots. They had one person, the job that was done by 50 people was now being done by one person. What happens to the 49? They get unemployed. And there are so many other factors except 4IR. Take, for example, when we were building the roads some 10, 15 years back, you would employ people to dig to do your digging work. But today, the 10 people that you would employ, you employ only one person with an excavator to do that, or a TLB to do that. That in itself creates unemployment. It's technology, which is supposed to be to our benefit. But the backside of it also is a disadvantage to us. But you can't say, as people who are development orientated, say, therefore stop being economically competitive in terms of bringing machines into play. You can't say that. You've got to come up with ways and means of developing people, developing skills in universities such as this one. You must develop skills that will be relevant to the needs of the economy of the time. You don't continue going to K and L block there, teaching people about a locust, cephalothorax of a locust. Go and teach them about the needs of their provincial economy. For example, teach them about mining, teach them about tourism, teach them about agriculture and agro-processing, And that in itself will assist us in terms of having all the factors, all the stakeholders in this game, all the stakeholders in this process of social development, playing their part and playing their role.
I'm going to come to you, Khutso. Perhaps if you could respond to the Premier. If you could just touch on what he's saying on unemployment. And also, what kind of development do young people want to see in this province?
Well, I think the Premier once again is being complacent. I mean, you cannot blame the levels of unemployment on technology. Even the most advanced nations, talking about the US, China, they're creating jobs for their people. Recently, in his campaign trail, the President of the United States has been saying that unemployment is at an all-time low since COVID, despite the fact that they have these machines. When you go to their McDonald's, you don't see people there. So despite the technological advancements in those countries, they are still able to create jobs. Now, we should not scare our people here and say machines are here to steal your jobs. Let us create jobs for our people. Now, as far as corruption is concerned, which is something that many people have touched on, including the Premier, of course. Corruption in this country, and I want him to be open-minded about this. I'm a leader of the FFSC, but just be open-minded. Act like I'm not a politician from another political party. Corruption in this country has been tackled or is being tackled in a factional way. Even the findings of the Zondo Commission, those who are now being charged and prosecuted are being charged along factional lines. Just recently, I don't know who it was from the ANC, made a very serious blunder by telling the country and the world that Shamila Batoi is a good deployee of the acting government. When the National Prosecuting Authority is supposed to be independent, we are now being told that the person who heads it is a deployee of the African National Congress, which essentially means that the current regime will not be challenged in as far as prosecutions are concerned. Whoever has been found on the wrong side of things, as per the Zondo Commission report, will not be charged if they belong to the so-called CR17 campaign or faction. Now, those ones who were aligned to President Zuma will now be charged. As you can see, the likes of Bongani Bongo, they are going in and out of court. But people like Gwede Mantashe are not being charged, despite the fact that they've acknowledged that they were implicated in corruption. Those things of Bosasa there, they are implicating them. They're not even denying that. What Shamila Batoi should then do is to say that here is evidence presented in front of me. The NPA must charge. But they will not do that because the acting government or the current faction that is in control can either recall or say that, no, Shamila, you're no longer protecting us. Move away, we'll appoint the new NDPP. So that is the thing. Corruption is just touched based on who we want to touch. Recently now, the ANC released this list of deployees. They are saying that they are tackling corruption. They don't want the corrupt. Gwede Mantashe is on the list. Top 5 is there as the acting chair. I mean, the national chair of the African National Congress. There's absolutely no way they're going to leave him behind because he's leading government, despite all these shenanigans that are associated with him. So we need to tackle corruption and not look at who is in power if we are serious about ultimately resolving the issue of corruption. There's another point that I wanted to touch on here, which relates to the false prosecution of the former president, which is also in line with the corruption thing. When they make an example of saying President Zuma is in court now, then it means that they are taking corruption serious. He's in court, yes, because he has went against the ANC. So that is why they are now charging him, because he's no longer living up to the values of the African National Congress. Now, as far as your question is concerned, my sister, and the change that we want to see, particularly in this province of Limpopo. Premier, we don't want to fight people who are doing a good job. Maybe to your credit, there's a mayor there in Feta Khumutubatse called Eddie Maile. I'm sure you know him very well. When I observe that man's work, I can see that this is someone who's working, despite the fact that he belongs to a different political party. Now, when I look at you, I don't see that. Even if we are to compare you with your counterparts within government, if you can take Panyaza Lesufi and take you, apart from the fact that he's employing ANC volunteers, at least he's employing. You know, if someone has some little salary, they're going to take that and buy something. The economy is growing in a way. Here in Limpopo, the only time when you see Mr. Chukuma Tabata is in 2 events. One, State of the Nation address, State of the Province address, by the way. 2, Mapungube Arts Festival. That's the only time you see him. That is the only time you see him. You will never see Chupu Stanley Matabata saying, young people come and get jobs. Much as we don't want our people to be given employment letters in that fashion of saying, come to a stadium, get your employment letters. At least do something. At least be a premier who's on the ground. We don't see you. People of Limpopo don't have a premier at all. Panyaza Lesufi is all over the country. Everywhere in Gauteng you see him, you'll even think that he's a national leader, whereas he's just in the province. But unfortunately in this case, we don't see you. I don't know if maybe politically you are tired or what, but let us see you, Premier. Premier, let us see you. In this province, we have 2 universities. In this province, we have 2 universities, maybe with other branches, but we have 2 main universities, the University of Venda and the University of Limpopo. Our municipalities are not doing well. Generally, even the province is not doing well. We need a premier who's going to invest in young people. Much as you can think that maybe your days are numbered in politics, just at least prioritize the young people in this country who have the necessary qualifications to turn our municipalities around, to turn our education system around, and everything else that is involved, that has to do with government in the province. Employ more young people in this country, in this province of Limpopo. We cannot be a province that is always expecting to be last. Matric results, we know that you are top 3, they're down there. Unemployment, top. Let us just change and have a way of developing this province. And you are the first person who must foster that in this particular province.
Whew. Well, before I take it to the floor, Premier, are you a Premier in absentia? And also, Premier, in terms of corruption, we can't speak about corruption and not talk about the scandal around VBS. What lessons did the Limpopo government learn from this dark period? If you could answer that before we take everything to the floor now, for the last time.
Of course, I can't come here and talk about myself as an individual because I work within a collective. He may not be seeing me. Well, he sees something else that is red. He can't see anything that is gold. It's obvious, that one. I can't blame him. I can't blame him for that. I can't blame him for that. So, your question
is on the lessons that the government
of
Limpopo
VBS,
has learned.
on VBS, yes. Yeah, the VBS saga is something that caught us, should I say, flat-footed, maybe, to suit him. You know, it happened at local government level. And you've got 3 spheres of government in this country. And the way in which we monitor what is happening at local government we had to change the way in which we monitor what is happening at local because of VBS. You know. But at least to our credit, immediately after we noticed what happened at VBS, we involved the Hawks. We recalled those mayors who had invested in VBS, who lost money in VBS. Currently, I think you would agree with me that there are so many people, politicians and officials, who are going through court processes, who have been arrested. They are going through court processes. Because of this, the instrument that were put in place by this ANC government, because we acted promptly after realizing that there is this, there are these shenanigans that happened in one of our mutual banks in Bembe. So as a result, politicians are going through court processes because we are a constitutional democracy. Politicians have been recalled from their positions because they had invested in this, wrongfully invested in VBS Bank. So that says to you that this government is serious when it comes to consequence management, when it comes to corruption. Look, both of them says we don't do anything about politicians when it comes to consequence management. They don't see politicians. But he comes back and says, you've got Bongo, who was a minister. You've got Msebenzi Zwane, who was a minister. And he says it is factional. You know, when it suits you, it's no longer ANC politicians who are being charged. It's factional ANC politicians who are being charged. You don't talk about John Block, who went to jail, former MEC, who went to jail, you know, because of this ANC government being robust when it comes to consequence management. They decide to forget about those facts and those realities and say nothing is happening with MECs. There are MECs in this province also who went through court processes, you know, during the term of Mapole. You know. So there are MECs. It's a fact. It's a fact. And most of those people, unfortunately for them, most of such people ended up being accepted, warmly accepted, in the EFF organization. You talk of the former public protector, disgraced. Today, she's one senior member. She's even in parliament, if I'm not mistaken, in the EFF government. But they have got the guts to tell us about consequence management. When we apply consequence management, these people run away to them. They accept them. And they come and parade here as if they are this pure organization. They are not. They are not. The reason why I had to be recalled from Ukraine to come and resolve the shenanigans that were happening in this province is because there were people like him who were in the forefront. And not only him, many of them today are running this organization. And they want now to take the whole country. They collapsed Limpopo. Now they want to take the whole country. What can only expect is that they also want to go and loot the national coffers now and collapse the whole country.
Well, I'm going to take it to the
Because
floor.
the basis of their existence is because they were expelled from the ANC.
Premier, I'm going to take it to the floor. I'm going to have 2 questions, but I must give you a right of response. I'll have 2 other questions after. We are running against time. The roving mic, the former mayor.
Again.
No, thank you very much, Lizek, to respect me, especially to give me a right to reply to this passive premier. This man is passive. Why I'm saying he's passive, I'm not speaking about the hope that you have built. I'm speaking about illegal dams and catchments in the farms of agrarian. Yes, ZZ2 next to you. He's having illegal dams. Go and demolish them. Don't speak of those dams that are benefiting whites. One white man benefiting from the hope. Now, this man, I think, Lizek, when I became the youngest mayor at the age of 32, I think he was working with the company called GNT. He's owing 300 million even today. We don't know where is that 300 million. And when I was leading the municipality of Polokwane at the age of 32, I never had anything called disclaimer or adverse at my age of 32. He lost 300 million on GNT. Secondly, when I was the executive mayor of the district of Capricorn, I found the municipality being under adverse disclaimer for 9 solid years. As I came in, I changed everything up until and Jamnadas called me. And when he's claiming to say he recalled me, his own person called me from home to say you have done a good job. That one is there when I was recalled. Secondly, let me say this. You know, sometimes you must speak the truth. No MEC was arrested, Papa. You are passive and you are a liar. Don't, no MEC was ever arrested. Please, don't, because all those that were recalled, some of them currently, as I speak, is the Deputy Minister of Police, have been promoted. Now, the last thing that I need to say, Lizek, we don't need other people to come and compromise the academic ethics and integrity. When a person lies there, one professor is always nodding his head. Please, protect your academic integrity in Tatekoma. Because when this man lies, you are nodding your head. Don't do that. Not with me. And not with me, because he was lying about me, and you nod, you say, hey, it's true, it's true. No, it's not true. Thank you.
I will, two hands. I will only allow 2 hands.
Okay.
In the white t-shirt.
Thank you very much. In 30 years, the only legacy we can say the ANC government left us.
Can we get your name, please?
Tumisani.
Okay.
So in 30 years, the only legacy the ANC government left is the word democracy. Well, to us, democracy means unemployment. It means student historical debt. It means drugs. It means crimes. Perhaps we are not the chosen Tintswalos because we are not ANC volunteers. So, Premier, when we talk of service delivery, at the center, we need to mention infrastructure. What is the provincial government doing to ensure the transformation in the built environment? The track record of jobs, the quality of work, the projects that are not even finished, the standard and the quality of the infrastructure in our community. Today we have dry traps, unfinished RDPRs, perhaps shacks called shelter for people. What is that? What is the government doing in educating our society, the importance of the industry standards, and the best practice to ensure the reliability in infrastructure? For a country that exists within mining and other factors at the center of this economy, why should we sit here and discuss land, jobs, and jobs? Why should we? On the instance of jobs, they are saying it increased immediately after your facing show that is called SOPA. Premier, we have to agree that in the liberation struggle of the so-called ANC, what was at the center? It was not this thing that you are giving us. This is not what we fought for. This is not what we hoped for. Where to now? Perhaps 2024 is our 1994.
The lady in yellow.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Mary. So, my question is just, it's simple and straightforward, and it's directed to Mr. Kujo Mamabulo. At the beginning of the debate, he was going on and on about how the country has been in the democratic system for over 30 years now, and there hasn't been change, and that they believe that this year there's going to be change since it is their 1994, of which Ms. Tessa here believes that it's not going to be a thing of overnight. And then since they are saying that they believe that this year there's going to be change, they are busy criticizing the Premier here. Not that I'm standing with him, but I want to understand in brief, what is it that you as the youth are going to do? What mechanisms are you going to implement to ensure that the change that you're talking about is actually going to come to life?
I wish we could take more hands. I will give you the last hand.
No, thanks very much. My name is Poto, a member and a proud member of EFF in Ward 26, where we are government here, and where we a member of EFF, which will of course govern after the 29th of May 2024. So, we as young people, we want to say to the government of ANC, of course through the premier here who's here, to say that we, in 1994, I won't speak about we, I will speak about our parents. Our parents in 1994 were sold a dream. They were sold a dream of employment. They were sold a dream of free education. They were sold a dream, of course, of houses. They were sold a dream of institutions of higher learning. Today, as we speak, the president there, the only clear president in the entire country, President Khujwa Mabulo, spoke on the issue of saying, out of the around 1 million of people who graduate from matric annually, only 300,000 make it to institutions of higher learning. This problem is created primarily because in 30 years that the ANC has been in government, they only built 2 universities, 2 in the entire country, being Solplaji and University of Mpumalanga. We have, I think, 28 universities, meaning that the apartheid government, which you don't want to compare you to, at least built 26. You built 2. So we are saying that as young people, we want a government that is going to come in and build institutions of higher learning. Not only build institutions of higher learning, but also make sure that young people have access to that higher learning free of charge. And that government is only the government of EFF. We want to say to you, Premier, you didn't respond to the issue of sheikhs. You never told us what happened to the issue of 68,000 sheikhs. Well, I've never seen that in my life. When you spoke, you just said a lot of, you were just making a hullabaloo saying that people are going through court, what. Why are you not in court yourself? Because you are the one who unveiled those sheikhs. The last point that I want to speak of
Thank you
is,
so much. Thank you.
But
We are running against time.
I'm wrapping up. It's fine.
Please be brief.
It's fine because now we don't have time. We want to encourage all young people, go out on in your numbers. 29 May, let's vote for a government that cares about young people. Let's vote for EFF government. That will make sure that we have free education. That will bring back our land. That will ensure that
Thank you, sir.
dignity of black people is restored in this country. That government is going to be led by the only president, Commander-in-Chief, President Julius Silo Malema. Thanks very much.
Kutso, I think perhaps you need to, before we go to the premier, perhaps you need to ask Mary. She directs a question to you around the mechanisms that the young people need to implement the change that you talk about.
Well, if you look at the party that we are vouching for, which is the Economic Freedom Fighters, it's a fairly young party that is predominantly youth in its compass. Now, say tomorrow we are government. I want to answer it directly. Say tomorrow we are government, mainly young people. We are going to get our priorities right. That is the first thing. I think all governments that are productive and progressive in nature are having their priorities right. One, they are dealing harshly with corruption. If you look at some of the members of the EFF who missed that important budget speech sitting, they were made to apologize to the public because they represent the public, which says that we care about the proceedings of parliament. Much as we're not in majority, but we care about the proceedings of parliament. We care about the proceedings of government. The EFF, to some extent, it is governing. If you look at areas where we are sharing power, you report a pothole, in 24 hours it's fixed. No question about that. Because we have our priorities right. Now, a premier in the province says we're having about 8 pit toilets. That number can just be reduced to zero if there is that political will to deal with the issue of pit toilets. Had the EFF been in power, some of the things that we're going to prioritize, my sister, are basic issues. There is no single household that must not have a flushing toilet. That is a basic necessity. Our government now is subjecting us to pit toilets. At least have a flushing toilet. At least have running water. At least have electricity 24 hours. Not electricity that is going to be given to you as if people are doing you a favor. During the Rugby World Cup here, we didn't have a load shedding. People were even celebrating, feeling good that there's no load shedding. What is that? Why are we having countries sourcing power from us, our neighboring countries, sourcing power from us and being able to have electricity for their own people, but we are unable to do that? So an EFF government will be a government that gets its priorities right, prioritizes education. They learn after us, of course. We came up with a policy of saying that public representatives of the EFF must at least attain a matric qualification in 2 years. Because we prioritize education. Our members of parliament, our parliamentary list, must at least have 10 PhD holders. That cannot be Gweda Montage. Now what is happening is that the government, at least 10 PhD holders, not that all of them must have PhDs. Now, the sitting government saw that that is a progressive move coming from the EFF. They still such ideas. And then they want to implement in their own party. Coming to the province of Limpopo, the MEC responsible for health recently was celebrating, saying that some of our clinics are operating 24 hours. But we know that that is the idea that came with the EFF. The EFF is the first party. The EFF is the first party to call for health facilities to operate 24 hours. Now, some of the things that we are saying we are going to do, of course, we are not going to be able to demonstrate because we are not in power. But I gave you examples of areas where we are in power in certain municipalities. We cannot, come on, take us serious. We're in every lane. Follow trends. Follow trends. Follow trends. Now,
please be brief. So we are running against time.
Yeah. In short, I'm not someone who likes running away from responsibility. In a minute, I'll be concluding with my remarks. He just mentioned something very important. And even us as the SRC, we said that when we assume power, we're going to ensure that that street light, much as we are saving the students in the University of Limpopo, that street light that has not been working for a very long time in Gate 1 and Gate 2, under the jurisdiction of Polokwane Municipality, under John Mpe, who prioritizes entertainment over street lights and safety of the students, we are going to ensure that we go there and request that they fix that. And I want to tell you, if you are going to come back here in the University of Limpopo in 4 months or so, that thing will be working due to our intervention. So, Premier, in closing, because I know that I may not be given another opportunity to have a closing remarks. Premier, in closing, prioritize the citizens of Limpopo. Young people, prioritize your future. Let us ensure that we go out and vote in our numbers. That is the only viable tool we can use to ensure that we deliver change in South Africa.
I will be going down the line. Prof, the gentleman spoke about the ANC building only 2 universities in the past 30 years. Institutions of higher learning, Prof. The importance of these institutions, should we put such significance on the ANC building institutions of higher learning? Given what TESA, for instance, went into in terms of we don't even have enough matriculants. We don't even have learners who make it to matric. Where is the problem? Is it the problem on basic education? Is the problem government? Whose problem is it?
Yes, thanks, Lizeka. So it's true that in South Africa, increasingly, it is clear that we need more universities, including TVETs, to be constructed. Earlier on, I reflected on the issue of the 30 years election messaging and narrative of the ANC. And I did flag the issue of setbacks. And one of the setbacks that the ANC has to publicly admit, you remember at some point, the ANC government took a decision to close or shut down a number of Vista universities. It also shut down colleges. It is only later, after some universities were merged, then they took a decision to demerge because they realized that the decision they took, which is a policy decision, to close on these colleges, to close on these Vista universities, was a flawed, ill-advised, ill-guided policy decision. So now we are sitting with a massive challenge as public universities in terms of accommodating this big chunk of matriculants who are coming into the basic education system, who are expected, and they have entitlement, and it is their constitutional entitlement to have access to higher education. So this is an issue that political parties that currently are contesting these national elections need to seriously look into and also dedicate much attention in terms of how to resolve this challenge that we are faced with. So it's an issue that needs to be prioritized by the new government that will be installed after the 29th May elections. The jury is still out which party will be in government. Thanks.
Premier, Prof is correct, the jury is still out on which party will govern, or if the ANC will indeed, in fact, dip below 50% as many have predicted.
That is obvious. That is very obvious.
But in closing, Premier, just in terms, reflecting on your 2 terms in office, reflecting on the progress, and maybe some would say lack thereof in this province, when you do your handover after the May 29th elections, what exactly needs to happen going forward for the next 10 years?
Well, I'm handing over. Remember, Teza, I inherited a collapsed government. And as a result, I'm handing over a solid, stable government administration to the next premier, the next ANC premier will be coming in. Remember, Teza, the issue of unemployment, Limpopo has got 30.1% unemployment rate, which is below the national.
49.
Which is below the national average. He must go and read. He must go and read the bulletin. It's unfortunate that you are a student leader, but you don't read. You must go and read that bulletin on Stats SA. We are the official unemployment rate, Teza. The official unemployment rate of Limpopo is at 30.1%. Let's leave out that one. He says he hasn't seen me anywhere, but we've got youth development strategy. And within this youth development strategy, not very long, we're launching a fund for that. And about 160 young people have benefited out of that. They are today in business. To the issue of closure of colleges, yes, I totally agree. You know, the beauty about the African National Congress is that where we committed mistakes, we do accept and acknowledge that here we committed mistakes. That is the beauty about this people's movement. And it will not happen with colleagues on the other side. You know, Tessa, if I have to talk about infrastructure development done by this ANC government, I can talk day and night about that. Let me give you the tip of the iceberg. Prior to us taking over as the ANC government, there was only one tarred road in the whole of Sekhukhune. Today, almost every village in Sekhukhune, has got an access road, which is tarred. I've already spoken about schools. Let me also
I'm going to ask
tell
you
you
to be
about
brief, Premier.
today, Tessa, we're building an academic hospital, huge academic hospital, which is going to be an asset for the entire Southern Africa.
Which has been long coming.
We are building it. Construction has already started. When you live here next to Edu Park, you'll see that construction is on. We are building that. That is infrastructure development. You look at Polokwane and compare it with the old Petersburg town. Look at the ring road that comes in and out of Polokwane, and ask me who built that infrastructure. The ANC government. Go to Butokwa.
Premier, we are running against time. We do have very limited
when it
time.
comes to infrastructure, we have done a lot. We have done a lot. The dams that you are talking about, we built them. So, your question is in the coming 10 years. In the coming 10 years, we want to say to the next administration, which will be coming in, that go and concentrate on aspects that we have not done sufficient justice to. One being the issue of youth unemployment. We want the incoming administration to invest a lot of resources
Premier,
to turn that around.
I think you're hearing the audience. They are insistent on the issue of Giyani. Perhaps you could touch on that.
You know, let me tell you something. And that is one other reason. You know, when I recalled him as a mayor, I recalled 5 of them. It was not only him. I recalled 5 of them. One of them was responsible for that issue of Giyani. Was responsible for Mopani. We had to recall him. And currently, the process of correcting the mistakes that were corrected, the mistakes that were committed in Giyani is almost towards the final, towards finalization. Ask me in the coming 2-3 months, at least 33 villages in Giyani will at least be receiving water. Currently, water.
Is it though not an indictment on your leadership, Premier?
No.
The fact that you are leaving this office.
No.
And that project is still not.
Simple education, Tessa. Water is not a provincial competence. Provinces are not water authorities.
Yes.
It can't be an indictment to me as a premier. But I'm going to take joint or collective accountability on that matter. Because the national government that was supposed to implement that project in partnership with the local government belongs to the party that I'm leading in this province. So that is why I'm saying I am prepared to take collective responsibility when it comes to that. But it can't be squarely put on the head of the premier. Last aspect, like I said, we need to dispel the myth and lies. You know, when I say things, I'm not saying them subconsciously. I am saying there is an MEC who was an MEC during the time when they were in power, who went through the court, the former MEC of Health. You know it. But you come and stand here and say there is no MEC who has taken through the court processes because you are used to lying. So that I can't lie to the public, to the people's place.
Premier, thank you so
I can
much.
only tell the truth because I was brought up by the African National Congress, which has got morals, which has got values, which understands that we need to respect our people on the ground.
Premier, thank you. I do wish that the audience would have heard you because you did say that there is collective responsibility in the matter of Giyani.
Absolutely.
You did say that it is the
I accept
competency of national government, it's the competency of water and sanitation. And yes, local government was involved, which is why there needs to be collective responsibility. Austepo, a few parting words from you in terms of your cooperation with government going forward. What needs to happen in order for this economy to flourish going forward? Austepo.
My belief is that we
Can we have some order, please?
We've got to adopt a shared vision. Right now, we're pulling in different directions and pumping resources into pit toilets, as it were. We need to increase platforms for collaboration. There is a triple P model that is currently in place, but the red tape that surrounds it excludes the role of small business. So we're unable to contribute to the triple P model, which enables us to coordinate some of our efforts so that we're able to have the desired impact. And I will stress this point. Employment is created by the private sector. Government is there to build an enabling environment. We would like to see our province with a clear solution on how we're going to mitigate the energy question. We need a clear solution and plan on how we're going to mitigate our water shortages. The DDM model, as it was described, sounded great because it means that we have a one plan per district, per municipality. We don't see that rolling out at a fast enough pace. So for me, it's shared vision. We all have something to contribute because it's ecosystems that ensure that we all thrive. We have a contribution to make regardless of our political affiliation or whether we are in public or private sector. The key thing is to achieve one goal. And for me, is ensuring that we beneficiate the resources that we have been given naturally on this earth. So mining must become a priority. The soil, the quality that we have, agriculture must become a priority. We've got a very rich and diverse culture. We must invest in tourism. So with those three sectors, if we can prioritize coordinated efforts in ensuring that we realize this dream of employing these young people that are investing their time and resources in acquiring knowledge that can plug into these ecosystems, we can really go a long way.
Tessa, as we head to the 29th of May, as an ordinary South African, while I'm dissecting these policies of these individual parties, what do I need to look out for?
Yeah, so I think 29th of May is an opportunity, and it's an opportunity that we can't miss as a country. And to the question that was asked by the lady in the yellow, whose name I can't remember now.
Mary.
Mary. About, not much will change. The thing that must change this year is that the voices of citizens, the voices of communities, the voices of voters must be prioritized over the voices of politicians. And we need to have a much more active role as communities, as voters, as citizens in the future of the country. And it starts with this vote, mobilizing ourselves to do something different in this vote. I can tell you now that the political parties will be complacent for as long as they think that we are not going to give them a shake-up, that we as the voters are not going to do something different. So if you look at, and there's many people who are polling and saying, well, the ANC might go under 50%, this party might grow, that party might decrease. All of that is just theory. The thing that will actually change this country is if we come out in our numbers as voters and we place a demand on the table for our vote. What are our demands going into this election? We protest a lot in this country. There's on average 26 protests a day in the last 2 years in South Africa. But we don't mobilize ourselves to go and vote together. We don't mobilize ourselves to have demands during an election that politicians must meet. We wait for politicians to tell us before we actually push back or we tell them what it is that we want. If we're really going to have a democracy that works, it must come from the fact that the people govern themselves first. We can't just give our responsibility of governing over to the politicians. They must go and work for us. Nobody has ever been employed without terms of reference, without being told what they must go and do, without being told what the demand is for when they go and get that job. We must treat these elections like we are going to go and hire and fire people. And in order to do that, we must know what our demands are. We must know what the changes that we want to see. We must organize ourselves in numbers. We must decide as collectives, as communities, who we are willing to have and who we are not willing to have. The only thing that will make this election really change South Africa the way it did in 1994 is if we come out in numbers and we make sure that the politicians hear us louder than they hear themselves. Politicians in this country get it easy because their voices are louder than the people that are in this country. We must make sure that 27.5 million of us that are registered, that we show up and we tell politicians what it is we want. If we stay at home, and we've got a trend in this country now where we're staying at home more and more when it comes to elections day. What I will tell you now is if the 5 politicians that you like the least are the only ones who show up, they will be 100% of the voting population and they will decide for all of us. But if 27 million of us show up, then they have to listen to 27 million of us. They need to pay attention. They get pressure from 27 million of us. And so I'm asking the young people of this country who make up 43% of that 27.5 million, 43%, to show up for yourself. Show up as somebody who's going to go and hire and fire the politicians that are going to work for you in the next 5 years. Let's shake it up. No politician must feel comfortable for the next 2 months. Nobody. Everybody must work for the vote. They must work to end up in those positions. And once they are there, they must hear from us every day after the 29th of May for the next 5 years as well. It is time for the voter's voice to be the loudest voice in this country. And the 29th of May, we must shake it up as the voters.
Well, on that note, Tessa, thank you so much. Active participation, a woke society, we must be able to participate and we must be active in how this country is shaped. I'm going to now hand over to Mr. Sipho Mukwena, Prof. Sipho Mukwena. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you so much to our very lively and robust audience. It's been quite a great discussion.
Yeah, I think you can do better than that. Thank you very much. I should actually start by really appreciating the manner in which the level of debate went. Indeed, as I was seated there, I was thinking which direction is going to take. But I have actually noted some a level of questions that cut across quite a number of sectors in our lives. From social, economic environment, political environment, as this is a debate, as a town hall election debate of 2024, and we know we're going to vote 2029. But also, indeed, there were particular nerves that were touched on some other aspects. I think even if we had minimized our reading of newspapers and other political columns, this debate rejuvenated us to go back and begin to skill ourselves, update ourselves on matters that are happening around us. Well, I will begin by extending my words of appreciation on behalf of the university to all of you for having prioritized this particular event over other perhaps commitments that you will have attended. You really deserve a round of applause. But I think I'll be doing injustice if I do not specifically identify a few members or attendees according to their particular roles that were asked to render certain services. I will start with the Premier of the province. Thank you so much for agreeing and also availing, not disappointing, to come and engage us. And I think you reflected on quite a number of initiatives as a head of government in the province, and you also put some kind of things that have been done for the past 30 years. We thank you for that. Thank you. May I also then thank, trying to follow protocol, the only one, Professor Mohalong in absentia, our VC. I think he sent a rep, and I'm trying to check. My glasses perhaps are no longer working. Vivi, are you still here? Mr. Khomeswane, thank you for those kind of words that you basically conveyed to the audience as given by our Vice Chancellor. Let me also thank the Executive Dean, Professor O.S. Banda, for kickstarting this particular event and handed over to the moderator, Ms. Lizeka. Ms. Lizeka, as well, you deserve a wow. Thank you so much for not disappointing and the level in which you provoked the panelists to get to certain spaces that I think it might have been difficult for an ordinary moderator to facilitate this session. I think I should also get to Tess. It's always interesting and very, very educative to interact with her. And I think you did not disappoint. You did quite well. And she also deserves a round of applause. My sister from the other mother, Ms. Seppo, thank you so much for making time. I know this time around it's so difficult, and I think your unselfishness is always appreciated. You know, business people, they not only always avail themselves at no charge, and also give and share their experiences to audiences like this one. Professor Koma, I should also extend words of appreciation for the contributions that you made, your analysis from the scholarly point of view, and I think, my dearest students, you know, in this environment, you agree to disagree, and sometimes you agree, and sometimes you disagree. So I think his involvement and contributions are going to go to the archives for this particular event. He deserves a round of applause. Then I will also actually come to Tatana Mamabulu. Akenza Swinene with all those contributions. To a certain extent, I noted that indeed this university produces giants. I think you seated next to the alumni there. I wonder why Mr. Homoswane forgot to indicate that this university currently, you know, produced many leaders, but as we speak, we have 2 sitting presidents that are alumni of this university. I think we deserve a round of applause for that. And I will continue actually. I think this one is for me very touching because I'm going to thank our partners, the Mail and Guardian. And I think I must indicate, Tatana Fagute, that you have a lovely team. I had an opportunity yesterday to spend some time with them, and even the level of engagements from the beginning with the team that was working with your team, it never disappointed. And we really, really appreciated to work with a partner of your caliber. I always say, this is the beginning, and I think we'll look for the marriage and take it at the level of a marriage partnership. And in Africa, Premier, the word divorce does not exist. So I think Mail and Guardian, you deserve a round of applause, and thank you so much for coming to where people are. I think the executive didn't like saying that. I should not actually forget the team of the university as well. I know it was a little bit difficult when I said to them every week we'll meet until the event takes place. And we continue it like that. The team from the different university internal stakeholders, you could see your hard work paid, and I think on behalf of the university, we want to appreciate the work that you've done, and indeed continue flying the flag of the university high. There were so many people behind the scenes that I could not even mention their names. In this case, where you seated, it's clean. Even the logistics behind all this are set up. And so many people, the list is endless, but anyone who played both direct and indirect role, we are appreciating your efforts. Now, colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, we almost at the end of our program, and I will just officially close the program now. But I will want us to take this order as we leave the room. We'll basically rise and okay, there's a message that I'm asked to read, and I will not put salt on it. Thank you for attending. On your seats are thank you notes. Please scan the QR codes to register your attendance and claim a 1-month subscription to the Mail and Guardian. Wow! A round of applause, please. All right, I was just about to explain the order. We'll all rise, and the premier, can we just be orderly, please? And the premier will then leave the room, and once it's out of this hall, then the panelist will immediately also follow. Thereafter, I do have Professor Sibanda. Where are you? You come, you live with the premier. You can't, and Victor, oh yes, Mr. Homoswane, come closer so that the premier can live with the two gentlemen. Then the panelists will then actually follow. Immediately the premier is out of the hall. And then I've got my guys, where are they? Mr. Njoko, Maureen, and others. They will be ushering the other guests from the hall. And people like me then, I will leave after everybody has left. Okay, in that order, please. Let's all rise. Prof, go that side. Go that side.